everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening based on where you are joining from. I am Vivek Goel from Quixie and I'll be your moderator today. But rest assured, citizen development is too close to my heart that I'll not shy away from sharing my own opinions and my thoughts during the session. So, welcome to this last session on the Citizen Development Week. Last 5 days have been fantastic and full of learnings. We had 20 plus experts sharing their insights on citizen development. We discussed everything from what is citizen development to what are the numerous benefits, how to implement it successfully, and how to measure the ROI. We also saw or discussed how AI can be used alongside no code, low code, and make it even more powerful. During the sessions we had so many questions that we were not able to take some of them. So in this last session we will try to answer some of the questions and also take any new ones that you may have for us today. So let's go ahead and type your questions in the chat below, and our experts here will answer them for you. So without wasting much time, let me introduce you to our panelists today. We have Matt Hubbard from TrackVia, and we have Dali Ninkovic from PMI. We will also be joined by Philip Lakin from No Code Ops in a short while. Each of our panelists here is an expert on CD and needs no introduction. And you can trust them for their insights when it comes to no code, low code, and citizen development. Welcome, guys. I hope you're doing well.
Thank you, Vivek. I'm doing very well, but there are a few things you said that I want to lean in on. You said that rest assured that you're going to share your opinions and viewpoints too. Yes, I'm counting on that, buddy. This is a lot of questions.
Yes. Yeah, I can't help it. So I will pitch in.
Okay. You also said we're going to try to answer the question. So I just want to be clear, like we are part of this citizen developer community. We've done this for a little while, but we don't know everything. So we will try our best to answer the questions, but maybe people on the chat will also be chiming in with their answers.
Yes, absolutely. We are all figuring it out. It is an evolving topic. So, and we will share whatever we know best, what we have experimented, whatever we have learned over the last few years. So, yeah. So let's get started. I'm ready with my questions. So
Okay.
here comes the first one, right? It was so good that during these last few sessions, we generated so much interest amongst the audience around no code, low code, and citizen development that people are already asking us questions about how can I make a career out of it. So the first question says, as somebody who has no coding experience, how do I get started, and how much complex software would I be able to build with no code? Matt, you
Ooh.
want to start?
How do I get started and how much complexity can I get into? Okay, let me think about that for just a second. So, getting started, there are multiple paths for that. I would say if you've never experienced low code, no code technology before, that is one of the places to start. You need to experience that. It's quite easy. The platforms are drag and drop. They're very intuitive, and they're very accessible today. Now, I recommend starting with your company. If you work for a company, reach out to your IT group and see if you have a citizen development program. If you already have a program, join that program and follow their path and their support. That's the best way. If you don't have a program, well, this might be an opportunity for you to connect with IT and suggest, hey, I think there might be something here with citizen development. I'm not saying that we need to start a program right now, but can we investigate it together? And I'll be your guinea pig, right? We'll test some platforms and we'll try some stuff out. Okay, that's what if you're in a company. But if this is just you by yourself, that's how I got started. Like I'm just a side hustle. Like I wanted to learn this technology. So honestly, I just got online, looked for free trials of platforms, low code, no code, and I started doing it. And I followed their videos for how to build. And then it grew in complexity. I've got lots of stories that I can tell about that because I started simple and also grew into complexity. But yeah, you can definitely make some money at this. Lots of people are doing it as a side hustle and eventually get into consulting. And even within your organization, I've seen a lot of people get promoted once they start doing citizen development because they're making a big difference for the company.
Absolutely.
If I could
Dali,
just,
and your thoughts?
I was just about to add to that. I mean, the first question it's probably something we need to address here. Is the citizen, when it comes to the career, is the citizen development the actual job, or is it the persona that we're talking about here? Yeah, this is the question that's been hanging around for a long time. Now, I actually think it's a bit of a both, to be honest, because citizen development essentially is an approach, right? So realizing ideas that usually come from the business side of people, so next to your daily job, you know what you're doing, you know what you're lacking, what are you missing. And citizen development as an approach can enable you to realize those ideas into the software application that's going to make your job easier. Now, is it a job? Actually started beginning turning into a job, because I've recently seen quite a few adverts, job adverts, specifically focused on the citizen development. But in reality, I think every person is potentially a citizen developer. Um, you don't need a job of this. You can still be an accountant or business analyst or project manager or anything that your current job is. But citizen development is something that's going to just make your way of working a lot easier and better and more efficient. Essentially,
Mm.
that's the bottom line, I would say. So, can you make a career out of it? I think it's not going to be a choice very soon. I personally think this is something that, as more and more organizations are adopting citizen development inside their companies, and there's quite a few cases, and I think we're going to touch on some of these cases later on. Um, you'll just be kind of dragged into this, and you'll see the rewards of becoming a citizen development. Matt and I are both been through this process many, many times, and yeah, I mean, we've seen the complete change of culture, change of kind of way of thinking, and people just getting kind of better at their jobs and enjoying their jobs a lot more than they used to.
Dali, I like that you talked about you're not going to have a choice. You're going to get dragged into this. This makes me think of something that somebody else said. It was let me think for just a second. My former business partner, John Bratton-Sevick, he is now lead analyst at Forrester. The way he has described this is, yes, we call this citizen development right now. It's a term that we're putting on it so that we can get it organized and help it grow. But eventually it's not going to be called citizen development. It's going to be called work, right? This is just how we get stuff done. Just like for the last 20 years, if you're in an office, work is like spinning up a spreadsheet and taking care of business with spreadsheets. Well, in the not too distant future, work will be spinning up an app and taking care of business with apps.
Yeah, correct, absolutely. And just adding to what Matt you just said, right, in the beginning, that how do you start? So you check with your organization if there is a program. That is, I think that is the right approach, right? Because if you look at any journey, whoever started it in the first place, it's more likely that they had a problem and they didn't have a program. They started playing with some tools, they became successful, and they realized, oh, there are these tools where you are able to solve your problem, like we did, right? So, and then you find another tool because now you're getting used to that, doing things yourself. And then you start sharing your experiences with the organization, and then IT becomes aware, and then they publish those tools to other departments. And then out of all these experiences, you have a program evolving, which now when a new person joins, now he goes and this is, yes, you want to try to automate a workflow, use Quixie. If you want to do a spreadsheet automation, use Airtable. So I think that is the right approach. Is what you suggested, that go check with your organization, is there a program? Otherwise, do a start, share your experience, and become an initiator towards that program for your organization.
Don't forget
Vivek,
also that
go ahead, Dali.
I was just saying, don't forget there's also quite a few communities out there around the no code and low code and citizen development. So just a simple Google search could do wonders for you as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So coming to the next question, which is on the similar line, what I think Dali was talking about, that will there be a time when businesses will hire citizen developers? And what steps can individuals take to increase their chances of finding job opportunities in this field?
Well, like I said, citizen development, yes. I mean, there's quite a few jobs at the moment, but I think citizen development is closely related to the actual daily job that you have rather than the IT as a profession, because for that we have professional IT people, and let's just get one thing straight. Citizen development doesn't exist without the IT. It needs to be done in a close collaboration with the IT, in terms of governance and security standards, etc., etc. So is it going to be a job? Most likely. I don't know whether it's going to be called citizen development, uh, but maybe term business development in the future, something along those lines. But like Matt said, inevitably, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. In 5-10 years time, everybody's going to be a developer. You're just going to be talking to your computer and saying, build me an app. Now you have to drag and drop. In 5-10 years time, you're just going to be talking to your computer and AI is going to be building you an app. So
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I said,
correct. And on those lines, I can't imagine, like in a few years, actually, yeah, in a year or something, I cannot imagine hiring some person without asking him that, do you use no code tools? How do you become efficient? How do you stay efficient? How do you innovate? Right. So, and if he's going to say, I don't use any no code tools, or I don't know what you're talking about, I'm not hiring that person.
I'm gonna piggyback on that, Vivek, and I'm gonna turn it on its head a little bit.
Uh-huh.
I think people who are coming to companies are going to be asking the same questions of the company. Do you empower your people with low code, no code to make work better every day? And if they don't, we're probably going to be looking somewhere else because I don't want to do work that sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And also when you go look at these bigger platforms, right, or low code platforms like OutSystem, Mendix, there are already jobs out there for them. So if people, there are jobs you see, we need an OutSystem developer, we need a Mendix developer. So I think those jobs will also become, as jobs also, they will become more and more available
well,
as
I think,
opportunities.
Vivek, I think now you kind of dragging us into this direction of kind of, is every low code, no code platform citizen development platform? I don't think it is personally. And you just named two major vendors in the low code, no code space, OutSystems and Mendix. And I absolutely adore those tools, very powerful tools. But I personally think they are very, very technical tools, and that they are made with one single purpose of making IT teams more productive. I'm not convinced that these are citizen development tools, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I concur with you. I just mentioned, like, yeah, they are not pure citizen developer tools. I don't think business users can use them. So they are more for people who are bent towards IT. But yeah, those kind of jobs are becoming
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
available. Yeah,
The
correct.
Dali,
fact,
you've touched
the
on
fact
a
that you've got
subject that's
close to 500 vendors out there, I mean, that just tells you enough how big this market is and where it's
Correct.
moving.
Correct. Yeah. So until these kind of jobs becomes available, I think they have to become an essential part of any business user's work, and it will be very difficult, as I said, to sell yourself without knowing your tool, or to be relevant without using and knowing these tools.
But it also increases your value, as an employee. When you're looking for a new job, I think when you're coming with these skills, as companies are more and more adopting citizen development approaches internally, if you already come with these skills, that certainly increases your value as a candidate for the job. So
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to the next question. Should businesses start with a top-down or a bottom-up approach when implementing citizen development in an organization? And where should they begin? So I think, Matt, you can take that because we've already answered that in a different way.
I have an opinion on this. My answer is both. It should be both. It should not, specifically, should not be one or the other. Okay. When you start bottom up, what I assume is meant by that is just like an individual in the business solving a problem with low code, no code, and making a difference without necessarily connecting with the rest of the company, IT executives. It's not formalized, and then it grows from that seed. Well, now that we're starting to understand that these low code, no code tools are powerful and they can be harnessed in a safe way for an organization, I don't want to see people starting bottom up only. I want it to start immediately. It's okay if it's from bottom up, but they should partner with IT right away. Hey, I want to start this initiative. Okay. I think there's something here to CD. Can we explore it together? And I'm going to put a plug in for PMI. And I think this addresses, I hope I'm saying the name right, Shiva Kumaran, you've got a question about many organizations are under pressure to have low code, no code. Are there any guidelines or framework for this to get it kick started? Is there anything on that lines? And I would say yes. This is why one of the reasons why citizen development is starting to explode, because PMI has developed a framework to help people safely scale. And let me just take just a second to describe the maturity model, because it's my favorite part. It does not start grassroots, shadow IT, and then eventually hope to find its way into the organization. It does not start top down. We've decided to do this and we're pushing it on everybody. That's not till stage 3 of the maturity model that you get formalized. In the maturity model, you start out with stage 1 discovery, then stage 2 experimentation, and then it's not until stage 3 that you actually choose to formally adopt and you develop all your structure. So my long answer to should it be top down or bottom up, it's both in the discovery phase. You're going to have one business person on the front lines who's not a coder. You're going to have them develop an app and solve a real world problem, but they're going to do it in partnership with IT, and they're going to study, how did that go? Was it good? Was it bad? Was it good enough that we should try another experiment, but improve on how we on the weaknesses in the first one? Okay, so that's what I recommend in terms of how to start, and then it eventually grows into a formal decision for the organization to pursue citizen development based on the results of those experiments. Then you formalize it, then you scale it up, then it becomes part of your culture.
Yeah, correct. So I hope that answers the question. So I'll move on. What are some of the complex applications you have seen built using no code, low code? Dali, you want to take that?
I was just thinking, is that like a generic question in terms of, because like I said, low code and no code is being used by the IT teams as well. And
Correct.
the type of apps from complete ERP systems, built on a low code, even Salesforce is essentially a low code, no code platform.
Correct.
So, it's kind of an open question. I mean, it can go either way. From the citizen development point of view, like I said, if the low code, no code platform is being used by the IT professionals, there is no limit. I mean, from complete ERP systems, shipping, logistical systems, I've seen it all. Having said that, from the citizen development point of view, I think it's important to understand that although as citizen developers progress through their kind of learning journey, let's call it this way, and maturity and growing as citizen developers, they'll obviously want to tackle more complex problems and build bigger teams. But essentially, citizen development is supposed to focus on the smaller apps, something that brings immediate value. And then if the app turns into something more complex, they can still be started and initiated by the citizen developers, but then passed over to the IT for more complex tasks. If you're talking about integration with through the API systems and things like that, then you definitely need to involve IT teams. But citizen development should be focused on those smaller apps, bringing huge value immediately, in general.
Matt, and you, any thoughts?
Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts. I got to sometimes squish the voices in my head, but let's get it focused just on Shell here. I'm thinking about Shell's example. So Shell is one of the largest companies in the world, and they have scaled up their citizen development program to over 4,500 active citizen developers. Okay, that is not done in the shadows. That is with some support and structure. They have a zoning model for their projects. Okay, it's a green, yellow, and red zone. The green ones are the simple projects that citizen developers can handle. Okay, the yellows are the citizen developers going to do a lot of work, but they're not going to do everything. They're going to, the more complex thing IT is going to handle. And then the red, it's like, yeah, let's leave that to the pros. Let's leave that to IT. But it's this yellow zone that I'm thinking about with this question, because what they told me is that yellow zone it's like an assisted path, right? Where a citizen developer joins with an IT developer. But they threw me a curveball when they said this. They said sometimes citizen developers will handle a yellow zone. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like there's too complex of things. They said, well, these citizen developers start out developing simple things, but their skills start to increase over time. And they become like an experienced citizen developer that is trusted and gifted enough to do those yellow zone projects. So I found that interesting. Like we have to think about, yes, we're all going to start in one place, but we're all going to level up as we do this more and more. And so the complexity will get higher for citizen developers.
And I think I agree with you. To take an example from Quixie, if I have to take our customer success team, right? You're talking about experience as you build more and more application, your confidence. If the platform allows you, you get more and more capable in building these complex apps. And what I heard recently from our customer success head was that they were able to build a full blown ERP at 5 modules. They were able to build for a customer along with their citizen development team, their business users, and take it live. So that is kind of a complex project, I'm assuming, even though I'm not very aware of each and every functionality. But they said that they were able to replace 5 modules in an ERP that the customer was using with something that they built on Quixie.
It is very doable. Hey, Ricky has a question here. Matt, what are some of the most complex projects you have worked on as a citizen developer, and what are the biggest challenges you faced? I would answer that, and Dali's probably got some. He actually has some coding background too, so he's probably worked on much more complicated than I have. I started simple, just building individual apps, supercharging my spreadsheets, and automating like notifications. That's how I started. But then I also kept getting better and better, and I grew into, I think, the more complicated ones were when you started crossing departments of multifunctional workflows, ones that aren't just sequential, but sometimes they're in parallel and they're waiting for work to be done before they can move to the next step. So I developed apps that controlled that to a T perfectly. And so I'd say those were my more complicated. But what was the biggest challenge? That's funny. The biggest challenge is not the technology. It's the change management, the adoption, the people side of it, the universal management skills. Do you guys resonate with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I remember I worked so hard. Actually, it's me and my business partner. We were so hard on this application, and we were so proud of it. But we failed to connect with the frontline people that were going to be using the app before we launched it. And so their arms were crossed. They're like, so? We're like, what do you mean so? This is a brilliant application. So they said, well, it really doesn't help me. Okay, well, what would help you? Let's connect as people here. And so we just added a little bit to that app that helped that person. And now they're like, okay, I'm in. This is great. I will tell everybody else about it.
It's a shame we're missing Mike now, because he's the one who kind of promotes the role of the middleman between the citizen developers and the IT departments, because that's where most of the complexity comes from. That misunderstanding. If you're working on a project and you need to kind of help from both sides, and having that kind of core person in the middle, kind of navigating both departments and making everybody happy, because usually citizen developers come back from the idea, but then the IT comes back with like, oh no, you can't do that because it doesn't fit in within our security standards and things like that. So for me, that's always been the biggest challenge, to actually cross that gap between the two.
Yeah. No, that's true. And as Matt said, right, sometimes we don't give it enough importance, but change management becomes very critical. We did one invoicing app that I keep talking about, where all the content writers can raise invoices, and we can verify and we can process. So earlier they were happening through email, and my accounts department, it took me a while to convince them to use the app. They were like, no, I'm fine with my email. I have no complaints. Don't push me into this technology. So yeah, I think change management is very, very important when you are bringing it.
Yeah, and some folks are asking about frameworks, governance, etc. And I mean, I'm not just saying this because Dali is here. He represents PMI, but I really like the citizen developer best practices governance framework that PMI has put together. So if you haven't checked it out, go on their microsite, check out their courses. But they have one called Citizen Developer Business Architect course, and that includes all of these management disciplines like change management. So they're not just teaching you about low code, no code, and how to use that to solve problems. They're teaching you about how do you do these soft side management skills so that you can empower people safely and scale this up in a sustainable way.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on. Next question is, How do we ensure citizen developed solutions align with the organization's strategic objectives and technology roadmap?
Ooh.
I've got a short answer to this.
Sure,
I
go ahead.
saw this question and I was like, I don't know. I don't really have much detail, but my two recommendations are number one, don't go rogue. Don't just do this on your own. And number two, partner with IT. Assuming that your IT is connected with the business strategy and that their solutions are trying to target the business strategy by connecting with IT and making sure that your apps align. Is a good smart way to do it. So don't go rogue. Partner with IT. I don't know what else. What else you guys got?
Rogue, otherwise it becomes a shadow IT, and we all know what the problems come with that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, like Matt said, I mean, I'm quite kind of fond of always, if it's a larger enterprise, I think it's critical for the um, stakeholders to have that buy-in for the top management and stakeholders to take this seriously. Yes, like Matt said, usually citizen development projects start with the discovery, experimentation, you proving the value of something. So usually you'll start in one department, you prove a value of something, but in order to scale that, you do need the buy-in from the management to actually run this as a proper program with everything that comes with it, governance, risk management, the training of the people, all sorts of different things that you need to kind of consider in order to scale this program across the company. But if you have that buying management, then it's going to be aligned with the company. I mean, as simple as that. And
Absolutely. Here's why I like PMI's methodology so much, because it doesn't start out with the big question of in a big decision to make of choosing your low code, no code platform and deciding to start a center of excellence and designing your entire framework. That's not how the journey starts. We're not going to ask the executives, but we do have a plan to ask the executives to make a decision. We're not going to ask them until stage 3, till after we've kind of figured some stuff out. We've failed, we've tried again, we've refined things. This is what I'm seeing as making it easy for executives to make the decision.
Mm-hmm.
but
Correct.
this brings us back to the usual kind of $1 million question. I mean, the executives will never buy into something unless they know what the value it is. Yeah. So like Matt said, you're discovering, you experimenting, you proving the value, and you're going to basically go back to your management and say, look, this is how we used to do it. I've done this. Now it's saving us or bringing us this much money. It's simple. That's always been the critical kind of point. And then I've witnessed throughout my career, some of the other examples in the companies with the continuous kind of improvement programs where people are identifying, other potential sits and development projects. It becomes very easy to actually put that value on a paper and basically say, if we do this, it's going to cost us this much money, but in the long term, it's going to bring us this much savings or more revenue, etc., etc. I mean, it's a shame again that Mike is not here because he's actually got the real life example from the Amtrak where they're talking about tens of millions of dollars over the last couple of years that they saved through the citizen development program. I mean, it all comes down to the value that the program is going to bring.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. The next question again is around IT and business teams. So, can you please share any best practices IT and business teams can follow around backlog management without causing any conflict? Can you also share some tips on making business teams and IT collaboration easy?
Okay, shall I go with this one, Matt?
Yes, yes, please go ahead. Dali.
Well, I've always been a huge advocate of any company considering citizen development program. I would suggest always forming what you can call it any way you like, but traditionally it's called center of excellence. So this is the body that sits between the IT and the business. So this is the body that's responsible. It's a combination of stakeholders for different projects. It's a combination of citizen developers, IT people. It's a body inside the organization that's responsible for training, making sure that citizen developers follow the guidelines, the security guidelines, the company branding guidelines that the IT has implemented in the first place. IT is there to kind of ensure that everything is being followed. They're creating templates. They're assisting with the more complex projects, assisted citizen development and IT projects. So having that central body is critical to kind of close that gap between the two. Now, how do you ensure that there is no overlap between the backlog? Well, that becomes very simple, because not every project is a citizen development suitable project. And Matt mentioned the one of the things that the PMI framework provides is what we call a suitability assessment, right? So this gives you a very simple idea of like, what is the suitable project for the IT, what is the suitable project for the citizen developers, and that's how you split it. So there is no overlap between the backlogs. Usually, the smaller apps, the less trivial tasks, all of this is actually being moved to the citizen development, and IT is focused on the core systems, which is usually the case. Now, not to kind of devalue anybody, but IT is fed up with all of these trivial tasks that can be done by the citizen developers, right? So the IT is wasting a huge amount of time on these backlogs, trying to solve the problems and going back and being drugged into it, whereas these apps can be passed over to citizen developers as well as the maintenance, because people usually neglect the maintenance factor in a software kind of cost. When you're building apps, building an app is easy nowadays, right? But the longevity of that app, that's where the real cost comes to the company. The maintenance of that app, if change management, if I need to, as the business changes, something functionality needs to change, instead of moving that to the IT, citizen developers can all actually now take over those tasks and adjust those apps to their needs. So benefits are going back and forth, but essentially the key thing to remember is not every project is suitable for citizen development.
Mhm.
Some of them are IT, some of them are citizen developer projects, and that's where the split between the backlog. There's no conflict there. It
Correct.
becomes very clear.
And I think the zoning model that Matt was talking about at Shell, right? So that's also doing the same thing, where it's a lot of clarity on what can citizen developers do. They don't have to go to IT, versus the yellow zone where they should collaborate with IT, versus the red ones where they should leave it them to IT.
Absolutely.
And PMI also has a great model, right? Where they have a checklist, and based on which you get a score, which you can plot on a graph, which very clearly tells you that yes, go ahead and you can do this yourself, versus take assistance from IT, and or leave it to the IT. So I would really recommend anybody who's looking for that kind of help, or this thing, to go through the PMI governance model, and I think they'll have a starting point for that.
I mean,
Matt,
going
you
back
want
to
to
the
say?
zoning model, Vivek, Shell actually does have center of excellence team. That central body that we were just talking about. So
Correct.
I think that is a critical part of any citizen development initiative. If,
Mhm.
if it's just playing around and creating apps to solve your problems for individuals, fine, you don't need that. But if you're talking company-wide CD initiative, definitely a body like Center of Excellence, Command Center, whichever way you want to call it, that needs to be in place.
Absolutely. Matt?
Yeah, I think I would be repeating a lot of what both of you said if I focus on the backlog management bit. But the second part of the question, can you share some tips on making business teams and IT collaboration easy? Just a couple tips. Vivek, you already mentioned the zoning model. So when you're in the yellow zone, that's collaborative. That's the business and IT collaborating together. So I'm going to call that like co-building, right? And so this, as the business and IT start co-building together and they get used to this, I think this is going to develop healthier relationships over the long run. And then the second piece I would say is, I'm not quite sure how I want to say this, but there's a couple things in my mind. And I mentioned this in a session earlier. There was a CIO I was talking to, and he said that they have developed a reputation, IT has developed a reputation of becoming the department of no. So business people would come to IT and ask for an app to be developed, and they'd be told no for Dali's reason, because that's trivial. We're not going to use our resources to work on that small project. And so the business would then go find another way of getting it done, or they would patiently wait when they know it's never going to happen. Right. And so this tension starts to exist between the two departments. And so I think if IT can approach citizen development as a way to give the business team another path other than no to get these problems solved, or other than using a spreadsheet or email, I think that is going to start to increase collaboration, and the business will see IT as an enabler. Now, this is not just giving the business access to a low code, no code platform. That will result in a mess. Okay. It has to include like coaching and support and training. And so if IT can be at the center of providing this support to the business, and the business embraces it and takes advantage of this support, I think we're going to see tremendous collaboration improvement between IT and the business.
Correct. And talking about IT and business, I am seeing a lot of effort from platforms in trying to build in the governance into the platform, right? Instead of like doing it offline where I have to go to IT that I need to do an integration. Can I do it? Am I allowed to do it? Can I build it? And wait for the approval to go and build it. Versus you can build that application, and then based on what you're building, the system calculates that, okay, there is an integration, there are some fields which seem to be of private nature. They are trying to use AI, and then based on the score, like there might be a flags where when you are trying to publish it or something, it goes for an approval for an IT. So those kind of controls also, I'm seeing that more and more effort, like a lot of effort is going in. How can we bake in the governance into the platform where there is not too much of offline conversations or discussions or approvals happening between teams?
Oh,
Hey,
Vivek, now,
we've got a guest panelist, Phil. He just sent us a note. Hey, all, we gotta let him into the session.
Yeah. So if our
Well,
director
we
can
Send him the link.
and
you just brought the issue of governance, and what I've seen over the years is governance is a critical part of any citizen development initiative if you want to scale it up. Having said that, you also have to be very, very careful in terms of how much governance you put in there, because too much governance will shut down that innovation kind of
yes,
creative part of citizen
absolutely.
development. They'll just give up and say, well, it's too complicated, too difficult for me, I'm not going to bother. So it needs to be very well balanced. There needs to be a good balance between the governance and creativity, for the citizen developers.
What's going on, Phil?
Well,
Hey, y'all.
Hey, Phil.
so
Long time no chat.
I know I missed you.
So here we have Phil with us now. We'll be taking some of the questions going forward. Welcome.
Oh no, he's taking the rest.
He's taking the
all
rest.
He's
Come on.
taking
We've
the
done
rest?
our work.
Okay. While we are chatting, there is a question that can we access all the recordings? So yes, you can. All these sessions that we had throughout the week are available on demand, and we will share the link so that you can watch any of them. So they are all available for you. So please allow me to move on to the next question. How can organizations foster a culture of innovation and experimentation to support citizen development? Any best practices or any tips? What can
Yeah, I'll
organizations
just
do
throw
to
a few
create that
out there
culture?
just to get the conversation rolling. But a few things that I've seen people do are they have hackathons, which encourage people to try to do something different. And it's okay if you fail, but you will certainly learn something out of it. They've established communities, which I know Phil can talk about. By the way, Phil has one of the best CD communities in the world. So a little, what did you call it the other day? Pluggy McPlugstein or whatever?
Pluggy McPluggerstein.
Pluggy McPluggerstein. I'm plugging you, buddy. I've seen company portals made about citizen development, a place where all these citizen developers can go and collaborate and share ideas and success stories. And then the last one I'll mention, I've got a whole bunch listed here, but the last one I'll mention is just communication, where you are publicly sharing success stories, but not just success stories. You're also sharing lessons learned of things that didn't work so great, which makes it okay that things didn't work great. But the fact is we're learning from them so that we can embrace that for our next steps.
Yep.
Don't forget the ideation sessions, Matt.
Yes. Yeah. No. Please tell us. Don't.
No, I was just about to say. I mean,
Dali, go ahead.
people like to be heard, right? People like to share their ideas. They don't want to be kind of put down and basically say, just do what are you told to do. So getting people, I mean, Matt mentioned hackathons. That is a great idea because people can actually open up, they get into the team spirit, and it's absolutely fantastic. But you can also do it in a simpler terms, where you can have one more technically savvy person just kind of developing what people are brainstorming in a single room. You get a team from one department and they're talking about their daily problems, what they're trying to solve, and somebody's building that through the low code no code platform as they speak. So by the end of the meeting, people feel that kind of sense of achievement that they've solved the problem, and that for me has always been a great way of kind of bringing people together in a collaborating culture kind of way.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. Well, any comments?
Yeah, when I was talking earlier about just like, not only the hackathons, but involving people and like creating a space, or like another more formal term I've heard is center of excellence. When I was at Compass, the real estate technology company, something that we did that I thought was really cool was, so I was like the right-hand kind of operations person for the head of customer success for the national team. And then we had customer success teams locally at all the different real estate offices across the US. So it was like 120 something people, all in different offices across the US. And, what we found is that naturally, even without us doing anything, the national kind of infrastructure and systems were moving as fast as people wanted. So they would just all start hacking together their own systems to do things. Like one department would create their own CRM in Google Sheets, and one department would create like a help center and like something that wasn't our help center. And because the national was moving too slow. And so one thing that we did was we said, let's not fight this and let's capitalize on it. And so what we did was we asked for one person from each region to act as like the systems rep for their team. And they would share like what they were working on, what best practices there were. And then like we would vote together around like what's worth experimenting further with that like we could potentially bring to everybody and move even faster because you've already tested it and homebrewed it. And it was a very grounds up way of doing citizen development, where it wasn't like, here's the initiative, everybody work on this. It was like, no, everyone just keep doing what you're doing, but like at least talk about it with us. And then like if it's really good, like we'll share best practices on it together. And the highest employee net promoter score we ever scored was when we had a big system that was a national system. And we had one region experiment with one system, another region experiment with another system, and another region experiment with another system. And then we had a demo day and let the whole department vote on which system we were going to do. And then we went with that system. And like when people are bought in, they feel like they can experiment, but there's support for it. It's a beautiful combination.
Nice. Okay, moving on to the next question. Do you think we need CD coaches like an agile coach or a scrum master for citizen development? Will they?
100%. Next question.
What did you say? Did you?
100%. Next question.
Next question. Yes. I am the grasshopper to Matt. He is my guru. So,
No, at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know if anybody read that Forrester report on the Shell use case that Matt mentioned earlier. I mean, they are talking about coaches. And like I said, citizen development is a journey. You're not going to be, the guru after you create your first app. This is something that evolves throughout your career, and you're just going to get more and more. And then once you reach the point where you can actually be coaching somebody else, then it becomes even more rewarding because you're kind of spreading that knowledge and getting more community and culture inside the organization. So coaching is a critical part, I would say. And Matt, as one of the most successful coaches that I've seen in this world, he's probably got something else to add to this.
Absolutely.
I mean, what else can I say to add on to yes? Next question.
thank you. Next.
Here's what I say. Like when I think about the path that somebody is going through as a citizen developer, and the organization is going through to scale up citizen development, we initially think that the first experience is building your first app, but I think there's something before that, and I think that's seeing what somebody else has built and seeing the art of the possible. What does good look like? And that then gives you the marker to shoot for as you build your first app and progress forward. So I think this is where like the coaching comes in, or your community. Like, start by being inspired by something somebody else has done.
Like
Absolutely.
people are typically doing citizen development whether they know it's a thing or not already, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
no one isn't hacking together their own stuff at a company because their devs aren't moving super slow, right? Like people are already doing it. So it's like tapping into what people are doing as opposed to saying, we now have a citizen development program and you are lucky enough to do extra work for the same pay. Right? Like
I'm so glad that you raised that Phil, because that is so true. People don't even know they're citizen developers. They're already creating VBA macros and all sorts of things. They're creating dashboards in Power BI or Tableau. That is all part of the citizen development. People just don't realize that they're already citizen developers. They just need to kind of evolve that to the next stage and, be, thrive for better.
Yeah. And we have within our team, like we have coach like who keeps studying these tools and everything, so that anytime anybody needs some help or has a problem, we just go to him and he tells, okay, these are your two options, and you can further have a discussion and guides you. So I think those kind of coaches are definitely invaluable, and every organization should have. Yes.
I'm trying to be the good, polite student and raise my hand instead of just jumping in. I have a request if we can do this. I'm looking at the time. We've got like 12 minutes left. And Pluggy McPluggerstein is coming within me right now. And I was wondering if we could jump ahead to a specific question that I want to make sure we get to, because
Sure,
I think
go ahead.
Phil's presence here will be very applicable. So one of the questions was about AI. In fact, there were a lot of questions about AI. The reason, Phil, I'm going to kind of point to you on this one is because of your session yesterday that you had with, where I'm going with this, with No Code Ops, interviewing John from Smart Suite. He did one heck of a demo of how they are developing integrations with AI. And so I thought you could talk about that, because the question is, can you share some examples of AI combined with low code, no code implementations?
yeah, so it's funny. I was literally just talking to this earlier with another founder in the space, and he, all of us no coders are talking together about like, what does AI mean for all this stuff? Like, and it's a very good question. And he was telling me he was building a no code app, and I just needed a bit of JavaScript somewhere in the app. And it's typically something he would have had to ask for a dev for, because it was a custom script and a custom piece of code. And he was just able to go to ChatGPT and write it up, and like, boom, he was done. So like, I see that much more than anything. I see that like the little bits that no coders will get stuck on are going to be easier to accomplish with stuff like GPT, because it's not the most super complicated stuff we get caught up on. It's like the little things that like we just don't know how to do, the little patches. And I think that's where we're going to feel like low code tools, which are typically very unaccessible to standard no coders, are going to feel like they're a little bit more accessible to no coders. And that to me is like very exciting. I could talk to you for 4 hours straight on what I think about the future of AI and no code and how it all works together. But the one sentence version, I guess, if I could do that of it, is I'm very excited because no code was a small world to a certain degree. And now every single person who uses ChatGPT is to some degree a no coder. And that gets me very excited. So it's a big, crazy world. And there's a lot of room in it for all of this stuff. And I think no coders are also very well positioned in the AI world because we are used to working very fast at high levels of abstraction. And that's exciting too.
Okay.
Yeah. And what I've seen, I've kind of steered clear of this whole Chat GPT thing a little bit. Yes, I'm excited too, but I'm aware of the hype cycle, the natural hype cycle of things, right? Where you get really excited about the possibilities. And then when we try to put it into the real world at scale, we get disappointed, you get into the trough of disillusionment, and you eventually come out with something that works. And so I've been trying not to feel overhyped, but it's hard not to. And so when I've been trying to think about the practical application for AI with citizen development, the very first thing that popped in my mind is what you were talking about. Like, yeah, citizen developers aren't coders, but once in a while you want to inject a little code or write a formula, and you might not know how to do that. So ChatGPT would be good at that.
That's huge.
For marketers, people in marketing, like generating content, it's a great starting point, right? I don't quite know how that fits into the citizen development piece, but it was yesterday when John was demonstrating how they are starting to develop integrations with ChatGPT that I'm like, oh wow, like this is gonna be good. There's still a lot to figure out, but this is gonna be good. He demoed two
and wait
things.
till you get to a place where you can open up a no-code, IDE, right, and say something like, make me a disposable UI that I can only use for like today, that creates an app that connects to these current systems in these way with these fields and these permission levels, and it just does it.
Yeah.
You said that. This goes back to my Star Trek. This goes back to my Star Trek analogy earlier. We're just going to be talking to the computer. It's going to be building stuff for you.
Well, John did a demo along those lines. It's not fully mature yet, but it was pretty darn good. He demoed two things: AI connectivity within a record, and then AI connectivity for the platform. So the platform bit was kind of what you just described, where he basically said, he wrote something like, I don't know if you can remember the details, Phil, but build me an app for automotives that includes a service department. And it took 2 minutes, and it came up with like 4 tables. The 4 tables were relevant to service appointments, to customers, etc. And it was a great starting point. Okay, definitely has a lot to. You have to tweak it and make it suitable, but it's like that good starting point.
I can't even tell you that, but what John demonstrated with Smart Suite is so powerful, because that starting point is the hardest thing for anybody, right? Like blank page syndrome is so real. Even me, like I don't even like starting with a blank Airtable on certain things. Do you know what I mean? Like, or I don't even like starting with like a blank Notion page. Like, just having something to start with, right, goes such a long way. Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of suggestive interference from the AI in the low-code, no-code community. I think pretty much every single low-code, no-code vendor at the moment is looking into the AI in one way or the other. And I think a lot of this is going to come from if you look at the low-code, no-code, 20 years ago, it didn't exist. People were talking about 4GLs, from the original 3GLs onto the 4GLs, and then it turned into low-code, no-code. Just the natural progression of these things. AI is just that next stage where it's going to be doing a lot of things for you, suggesting things. Have you considered this? Have you considered that? Maybe this database model doesn't really resonate with what you're trying to build, optimizing things. That I think we're going to be seeing a lot of that over the coming years.
That's so true, right? I was talking about a similar thing yesterday to somebody, and I was explaining that like 2 years ago when we built the platform, it was drag and drop, and that is so cool, right? That you can drag and drop and build an app. And then all of a sudden, in an year we had Snap to App, where you can just upload a picture of a form, or you have drawn something on a paper napkin and you just take a picture and it becomes an app. To today, where you don't want to even do that, you just want to speak it out, that give me a leave application, the 3-step process where manager approves and HR processes, and you expect the app to be out, and it is becoming a reality. So that is how fast things are changing.
You're making me think of how we take real fast. You're making me think of how we take things for granted over time, right? So like we, as the older generation now, thought dragging and dropping was the thing, and now our kids are like, dragging and dropping, that's hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Matt, I've got a new term for you to coin. Instead of dragging and dropping, now it's typing and hyping.
This is a lot. I think I'm going to be paying a lot of royalties on all these terms that you guys are giving me. It's copyrighted, right?
Okay,
we'll do it.
Okay, so guys, we have only 3 minutes left, so I think we'll take the last question, which is from the audience, Nidhi. So how do you guys see citizen development evolving in the next few years, and what trends or technologies do you think will shape its future? And I think it's a very appropriate question
I
to
think we
answer.
just answered that. I think we just answered that question.
Any additional thoughts?
I mean, I'll just recap what we said, but I think it's eventually going to become just associated with work. It's not going to be called like any particular name. And it is going to be more and more automated, easier and easier because of things like AI.
Yeah, I think it becomes a part of work, and I think it. One thing that we've all kind of accepted and known, right, for the past however many years is that being a developer is a practice. Developers use multiple tools in that practice. They have systems of infrastructure and best practice to support that. And I think we're just in the first couple of innings of no coders getting that type of third-party infrastructure, best practices, like with stuff like PMI, right? Like we're just in the early innings still. And I think now with AI making all of these things and these trends go even faster, I think there's just more of a need for best practices, infrastructure, your operations professional being recognized for the work that they're doing. Like, I think in the past it's been seen like, oh, the real work happens in the data warehouse, right? And everything else is garbage, right? Or just like for fun and like, we'll give you a CSV export, you play in your ops world with all your fun little things, right? But like, what I think we're now seeing is that like, just like the data warehouse and all this stuff is like its own layer, and the application externally facing is its own layer. Internal operations systems are also their own layer, and department by department are also their own layer. And I think those will formalize and get more recognized as time goes by.
I agree.
Okay. Okay, so I think with that we are out of time. So Matt, any last thoughts?
Yes, I want to thank you, Vivek, and your team. Seriously, you can't see the team behind the scenes, but geez, you guys had a dream one day, like just 3 weeks ago, and came up with Citizen Development Week. And here it is. And and then all the panelists kind of last minute just decided to be part of this. And we're already starting to refer to it as CDW. Like it's a thing. And we're going to do this again next year. Please promise me.
Absolutely, we are doing it, and thank you so much. It has been a great team effort, and we are so glad we did it. And as I said, right, when we designed the program, we wanted to design it around today, 21st, which is the World Creativity and Innovation Day, and we thought let's do it because that's what business users are, how they are innovating and how they are becoming creative. So, and we wanted to cover everything from top to bottom, and that is how our approach was, starting from our very first session, that what is citizen development, to our last session, that how do you calculate the ROI, what should be your key performance indicator, how do you bring in AI. So we tried to cover a lot of things, and I'm so glad with all the support that I got from the industry, from you, from everybody, from PMI. So everybody jumped in, and initially I was reaching out and you helped me get some of the panelists, but then later I started getting requests. So I'm sure with all the success that we have seen with this, we'll have a far bigger and better version of this event next year, and so much looking forward to it.
Definitely.
Okay, so thank you everybody, thank you all the panelists, thank you audience for joining in. The Citizen Development Week is ending, but our conversations don't have to end. So please let us keep the conversation buzzing on our social channels, and anywhere you get to see, please talk about citizen development, spread the awareness, and together I think we can go a long way. So as I said, I promise we'll be back with a bigger and better version next year. Until then, goodbye from all of us.
Thank you, Vivek. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you,
all.
everyone.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Quoting Phil, go build something, y'all.
Go build something, y'all.